There you go. We finally made this happen.
Yeah.
Very happy. I don't know if I mentioned to you in a message or not, but I did talk to Chris Gates probably about a year ago,
Oh,
which
that's
was
yeah.
pretty cool. Um, I know you're from Texas. Where were you born in Texas? Or were you born in Texas? And where did you grow up in Texas?
Grew up in a place called Lake Jackson, which is 40 minutes south of Galveston. So I grew up surfing, and that's why I started skating when I came up here because I couldn't surf. And so we were right. We were about probably about 15 minutes from the beach, and so like high school, basically, we'd go before school if the waves were good. We didn't go to school. We'd go at lunch. We'd go, just that kind of type stuff. So yeah. And back then, surfing was not cool at all down there, kind of thing. It was like you were a freak if you were doing that. So, yeah.
It's unusual hearing someone from Texas talk about surfing. So that was in the Gulf?
Yeah, there's definitely waves, and actually, when I went to Australia to do a mural for the surf kind of celebration thing they were having and stuff in Byron Bay, it's really great. And I met McTavish, and when I met McTavish and I said I was from Texas, he started naming out places to surf in Texas, which I was just like, yeah, that's like this. We our, our waves are like it's sandbars, so it's like if there's waves, you really have to be in shape to get out there, and it does come in sets, but because of the sandbars, it's just constant waves, and so.
How old were you when you started surfing?
I was probably a freshman in high school because I made my first. I made a surfboard first. I made a little
Oh,
twin, and then once my parents kind of figured out after about a year surfing on that I was going to that looked like this was something I was sticking with, and they said, okay, well, we'll pay half if you can pay half. And so then I ended up buying a little California board that was about, and this is like, I was in high school from 70 to 74. So this is like, everybody was getting little bitty short boards and stuff. But in actuality, definitely the waves where we are a lot better with a long board than they are with short. But you can definitely surf short boards. So, yeah.
that's interesting. What about music? Were you already listening to music at that point? What were you listening to like in 74?
I was definitely the weirdo in high school. Um, I start. I have two older brothers. They were both coaches. My parents were. My dad was an elementary school principal. My mom was an elementary school librarian. I was just here I come, and I think my dad was like they were both really supportive, but I think my dad kind of really liked the idea that here came this kid that was like more music, art, and stuff like that instead of being, prom king and just a high school kind of, all that bullshit. Um, so as long as I can remember, I was playing music and doing art, and I probably did art before music, and then here came the Beatles, and I started wanting to play guitar really bad, and this is all elementary school, and um, my oldest brother was really, really into soul music. So I grew up with Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions and all that kind of, which I
Nice.
love. And so when I got into high school, probably late junior high, but definitely high school, I got really, really into acoustic guitar. And so I was really into stuff like Burt Yanch and Nick Drake and, that kind of John Martin, those kind of Bruce Coburn and all this kind of type stuff. And when everybody else was listening to, because Deep Purple had just come out and
Yeah.
Black Sabbath and all that, I'm here listening to this other stuff in this little Gulf Coast town. And like, I was just the freaking weirdo in the high school because I wasn't, and I didn't not like that music. It's just that I was so much more into all the acoustic stuff, and that's what's so funny about all of this now is because people that hear Up Around the Sun are kind of looking like, what the hell, kind of. And to me, I've kind of come full circle here. Like I wasn't playing exactly what Up Around the Sun is playing, but that kind of real melancholy kind of, yeah. And I still have always listened to that, and that's what I've listened to, and pretty much all the way through college. Um, and then when Big Boys started, Chris and I flipped a coin because he played guitar and he played like what Junkyard ended up playing, and I played acoustic finger picking tunings, all this kind of stuff. And so we flipped a coin to see who was going to get bass, and he got bass, and I got guitar, and that's why the guitar is such an odd sounding. A lot of times people can't quite figure out what chords I'm playing, and that's because I'm so used to being in open tunings.
Right.
And I played in standard, but I just like things open. So I would dissect the chords, and I didn't really use bar chords, and I didn't, I mean, so.
I want to definitely talk about big boys, but let me go back for a second. You actually you actually answered a question for me before I asked it, I was going to ask you if you got into art or music first. What platform were you doing with art when you first started with the art before the music?
Just drawing like Batman and drawing, I don't know, like just different kind of cartoon characters and drawing like dinosaurs and, I don't know, like just, stuff you do when you're in elementary school. I didn't really draw cars. I kind of drew more just like crazy scenes where, here come the dinosaurs and they're attacking the Apache fort or whatever kind of type thing. So, and I still do. I had a really huge imagination, which I kind of still do. So,
Yes, you do. So you didn't start painting right away. You drew for a while before you started painting.
yeah, I started painting probably in high school. Well, I probably painted, because I mean, obviously you paint with finger paint or stuff like that. And in elementary school, they would have little projects every once in a while that you would do. And so I'm sure I probably did, but I remember the first like big kind of paintings where my mom would bring home the big projector, this great big huge opaque projector kind of things from school on the weekend, and I would get butcher paper and I would like draw up like I can't even remember now, but just like the Led Zeppelin cover or something. I would draw that up and then paint it, and for friends, friends wanted different, ooh, it would be cool to have a poster of this. So I would paint it up kind of thing. And so, I was kind of doing that, but I didn't, I mean, when college started, like, and it's, my parents are passed now, but they're here. I'm closer to them now than I was when I was in, they were in Lake Jackson and stuff kind of. So if that makes sense, I'm really different about death. I think that stuff like my Carol's here, like all these people are here, kind of thing. So, um, but I, trying to think what I was going to say.
Before you do say that, I want to say that's very moving that you're saying that to me today because I just lost a close friend
But
literally yesterday.
I just
And
firmly, firmly believe they're here. I mean, if you're thinking about them, they're here. It's. I mean, there's a really funny story about we lost one of our dogs, Gracie, and we had to put her to sleep, and we did it at the house and stuff because she was really sick and all this, and so she died out, and she went into the studio where our other dog had passed, and so here came, we had a vet come and do it at the house, so it wasn't real traumatic for her and all this kind of stuff, and so I'm carrying the dog out to the car for him, and he looks at me and he's just like, well, how are you doing? I said, well, I'm okay. I said, I have a really different feeling about this stuff than a lot of people. I think they're here. It's like it's just, yeah, you can't physically hug them, but
yeah,
you hug them, it's like they're here, like they were here. And I said, like my parents have passed, but I feel closer to them now because they're here and they're not in Lake Jackson at home, kind of thing. And he kind of sat for a minute and he looks at me and he goes, you're from Lake Jackson? And I went, yeah. Are you from Lake Jackson? And he's like, yeah, kind of thing. And it ended up that his mom had taught under my dad at the elementary school.
wow.
So, but yeah, I've always thought that. So, but my parents, like, yeah, it's just, this isn't their orbit. Me and Beth's life is just not the normal orbit for a regular, mom and dad, family, whatever, just, most people kind of type thing. So, it's understandable. They just didn't really understand what was going on or what was I going to do and all this. And I came from the generation of, when you get out of school, you go to college. And so I didn't want to, they didn't have guitar. I came to UT because Beth was here. And Beth, like, she's 2 years older than me. She knew me in elementary school because I was the librarian's kid. Went to the same junior high, met when I was a freshman in high school. No sex, nothing, just best friends, brother and sister. And we were like that until she went to college and realized age has nothing to do with anything, and wrote me a letter, and we've been together ever since then. So when I graduated
Beautiful.
in high school in '74, I moved to Austin to be with her, kind of thing, and go to school up here. And plus, Austin's always been like a little San Francisco. And so, especially back then, if you were into more like art and music and things like that in Texas, you came here. You didn't go to Houston or wherever, although Houston now is like really pretty great with art and all that stuff. But, so they didn't have guitar here. So I didn't, want to do that. I didn't really want to do drama, although I'd kind of done it in high school, but I wasn't really that. And, and I thought, well, I draw all the time. I'll do art, kind of thing. And of course, my parents were just like, oh, well, you'll teach, kind of thing. And so, but I had no idea what I, there wasn't any plan. There wasn't any sort of, you know, I always admire, it's crazy to me when people, because we have friends who's like their kid day one wants to do this or wants to do that and literally sticks to it all the way till that's what they're doing, which is kind of amazing to me. So, but I just never, and actually our wedding, we started living together in '74. We got married in '78. Chris was at the wedding with Nathan. Big Boys weren't even, being in a band was not even in the picture at all. Like it just wasn't. We had all gone. We got married on the beach at home, and there was a brand new skate park that had opened up between Houston and Galveston, and so we all wanted to go see that, like a cement one, and that was really funny because I remember being in line to get the card, because they would take your picture and give you a little card for membership, and I remember Paul, who was kind of making our boards, kind of turned to me and was just like, well, we should pay for you. I said, what? And he's going, well, I think this is your bachelor's party. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay. So, but yeah, so that was that. Like I, just didn't really
So
have, so
you adjusted to Austin pretty easily then,
yeah.
right from the start. The Big Boys were a very influential band in so many ways. In fact, I have to tell you, Fun, Fun, Fun is still to this day one of my favorite songs. Can you talk, and many others too. I mean, can you talk about the early days of how the band got together?
Well, we all skated, and so we were already skating for like 3 or 4 years before this even came up, and Raul started up. I was working I just graduated college in '78, and I was working at the libraries. And my wife Beth is a librarian. She ended up being the theater dance librarian, and now we're both retired. But like, to me, work was always kind of like school, where you have to go to school, and then when school's out, you get to do what you want to do, kind of type thing. So now I kind of feel like I graduated because now I'm doing all this other stuff that, like, doesn't, I don't know what retired actually is, kind of thing. So, but so I was working at a record store too, and here comes, you start seeing the stuff from England. You start seeing the Cure and Wire and Sex Pistols and
It wasn't Waterloo, was it?
No, no, no. This is before Waterloo. This was at a record store inside of Dobie Mall, and a record,
Okay.
what it was called. And and I was so much more into like soul and funk, and I mean like real funk, not the kind of, and that the punk rock stuff. Yeah, it was cool, and I liked the Clash better than I did. The Sex Pistols just sounded like rock and roll to me. And but the Clash were pretty cool because of the harmonies and stuff. And there was things I definitely liked and stuff, but I still was so much more into acoustic and soul and things like that. So Raul's opened up. you started seeing people on campus that kind of looked like the people in England, and which was really different for there. And so finally, Beth and I guess Chris, I don't really remember Chris going, but he always tells the story that he did. But I remember it being me, Beth, and Rob, a really good friend of ours that was already into this stuff. And because he had gone to Inner Sanctum and bought a Jonathan Richman record. And back then you had to pay like 20, $25, which was a lot of money back then
Yeah.
for the imports. And I couldn't believe he had paid that much money for this record. And he'd put the needle down and be playing it, and I was just like, this is the stupidest, like, play that song again, play it again, you know, kind of thing, because it just was just this most catchy kind of type thing. So anyway, so we all went to the Battle of the Bands at Raoul's, and hook, line, and sinker. Like as soon as I saw that going on, the music was secondary. The thing to me was that everybody in there was just as important as the band was.
Yeah.
And back then is what it is now. You know, there's a barrier and a stage, and they're up there and you're down here and all this. But back then, same sort of thing. And but here in this place, no, that wasn't happening. And everybody was together, and people were doing zines and all this kind of. And I just was like, okay, this is the coolest thing. Like I definitely want to try to do this once. Let's see if we can be in a band one time. So Chris and I talked about it. We were out at Pflugerville skating, and we thought, well, let's see if we can play Raoul's once. You know, and that's really what it was. Let's see if we can play one time, and we'll get Biscuit to sing, because Biscuit was already going to Raoul's, and he was 10 years older than me. So he, you know, went through the whole kind of cosmic cowboy hippie kind of stuff, and then now, when we first started, his hair was down to his butt. And then he finally started pretty soon after kind of cut it all off. And he cut off his mustache. He had a mustache for a while. And so, yeah, we decided, okay, well, we'll play one time, and we'll get Steve. Chris knew Steve Collier, who was another skater, played drums. And he lived in North Austin, which was kind of, at that time, was kind of a ways away, you know, from these. We were pretty much central Austin where we were all living. And so talked about it, decided we were going to do it, got together at Biscuit's house and played. I think we played Hello, I Love You and Wild Thing, and I can't remember what all else we'd been. I think we'd made up Frat Cars, and I don't remember, I think we had about 4 or 5 songs that first show. And the first show, what happened was somebody got a hold of me and asked if we wanted to play a party. And I said, because Biscuit was, you know, such a Dada character. I mean, everybody talks about the gay thing, which, yeah, he was gay, but he was more Dada than anything else. He wore that pink tutu maybe 4 times at a show. Like there were so many different things he was doing, and not even as a show. He would just get up in the morning and dress in some crazy outfit and ride his bike down the drag, and just to do it, you know, I mean, really, really Dada. I mean, and so we practiced, and they called and asked if we want to play a party, I'm sure because of Biscuit. And I said, sure. And they said, well, what's your name? And I said, Big Boys, because I remember we had 3 names, but I don't remember what the other 2 were. And that was the only one I could remember when the person called. And then that night, Beth and I were walking on the drag to go see a movie. And when we got out of the movie and we were coming back home, we see a poster with like about 14 bands listed for this party at the Vault. And Big Boys are on there. And we thought, oh shit, somebody's got that name. We're going to have to oh shit, that's us, you know, kind of thing. It was like, well, all of a sudden we had to play. And so the first show was at the Vault, which was this old fur vault. It really was an old fur vault that had a big metal door that you turn the thing to go into, and you know, so that was the first show. And then we played Raoul's, and then it just kind of kept going. It like didn't really ever stop, and it, you know, at this point kind of never has stopped. So it's like, you know, so.
Before I mention the next thing, you brought up Pflugerville, which is funny because in 1990, I worked on a movie in Pflugerville, and I
That's
remember going there every day on this bus with all the actors and everybody, and there was a sign, population 945. And recently I was curious and I looked it up, and it's like 50,000 people live there now. I'm like, what the fuck?
Austin is so different now, like than it was, and yeah, it's like all the outlying. And it's funny, by '90 they'd covered up that ditch because in Bad Mother Goose we were in an old school bus and we'd be going to Dallas, and it was just my instinct every time I would be on the highway and go where Pflugerville was, I would do this because they'd covered it. So I did that in the school bus going by, and everybody's kind of looking, and I said, "Oh yeah," and I had to explain what Pflugerville was, and like this really great ditch, and kind of so.
Yeah, it's changed. You guys get a lot of credit for mixing funk and punk together. And, it wasn't just punk rock, sound on sound. You guys had some really interesting songs. Did that happen by accident, or was it your intention to fuse these two genres together? Because it didn't seem to bother any of the other hardcore and punk bands because they all played with you guys, whether they were down there or LA or whatever.
Texas had done, man. We were the ones booking all the, or helping everybody get shows in Austin. So um, that I have a really hard problem with punk. Now I don't like labels. Labels drive me up the fucking wall because they're so constrained, and it's like self-expression shouldn't have any sort of barriers on it. So what the hell are you doing
Yeah.
putting why? Kind of so when people act like a lot of times when people interview me, they get really confused because right off I'll be like, we weren't a punk band. And because punk now is such a uniform and a set of rules and all this whole kind of which no. And back when we were started doing what we were doing, there wasn't any rules to any of this stuff, especially in Texas. And the whole idea was you can do whatever you want to do, kind of thing. And so we didn't skate to Ted Nugent. We skated to Cool and the Gang and Ohio Players and all that kind of Cameo and bands like that. And so of course we're going to play that, kind of thing. And then between us, especially between me and Biscuit, we listened to so many different kinds of music that it just all kind of fused in together, because I was already listening to John Coltrane and things like that, and that was the beauty of it back then. You did what you wanted to do, kind of thing, and that's how it should be, So somebody at some point, somebody fairly recently said I was an outlier. And I had to look up what that was because I didn't know what the hell that meant. And then when I realized, oh yeah, I like Sunrise, right? This is great.
It's funny because the Minutemen were kind of similar to you guys in the way where they got thrown into the categories too, but they weren't really a band you could put in a category.
When Spot saw us the first time, when Black Flag came through, he was like, "You have a sister band," and he was telling us all about Minutemen. And at first, and I loved them, but at first I was like, I couldn't really quite figure out why people thought we were like them. And then I realized, oh, it's because of this. It's because the attitude and what's going on and what we're doing and we're not. But also, if you look back at Texas, none of those bands sounded like, Hickoids didn't sound anything like Butthole Surfers, didn't sound anything like the Dicks, didn't sound like Really Red, didn't sound like, we didn't have like this rigid thing that you were supposed to do, kind of deal. It just wasn't there. And so playing here was fine, in Texas, but like, yeah, when we would go off other places, people were just like, dude, this is hardcore. What kind of just, yes, who cares?
I totally can relate to what you're saying because when you think of DC, there's the DC sound. When you think of Boston, there's the Boston sound. LA, you guys were like different.
Yeah, just because the attitude here is a lot more open, and you pretty much know where people stand right off. It's like they just, and also there's a lot of times people not from here think that you're trying to get something from them because a lot of times people will be like, oh, you need to go where? Oh, okay, well, come on, I'll take you, kind of thing. And they think it's because you're hoping you're going to get something back. But no, it's just the way things are here. It's just people are a lot more friendlier. I guess it's kind of Southern, but Texas is definitely not really South. So,
Yeah, when I think of Austin too, and the way people talk about Texas, I never felt Austin was really part of the whole
oh
thing,
yeah, especially now. Texas, like, it's ridiculous now with Abbott and all that stupid shit. So yeah.
Just a couple more things about Big Boys. The band kind of ended abruptly, I think. What would you say happened at the end?
Oh, we went on we were the reason that the Trouble Funk show happened in DC, because Trouble Funk read that we were a cross between ZZ Top and Trouble Funk and the Village Voice or something, and so when they came through, bands like that didn't play in Austin. They would play Houston, San Antonio, and more urban kind of. But they wanted to play because they wanted to play with us, and they wanted to play at Clubfoot. They got a hold of them. We were banned from Clubfoot. That's kind of why Fun 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 was written, was because when we got banned for there, and and actually Fun 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 is a total rip off of a Cockney Rejects song, because Chris really loved, and I like Cockney Rejects too, but Chris really loved Cockney Rejects, and it's a straight up, and that's why at the start of it you hear him go, "It's a rip off," and he, starts, but
Mentioned Cockney Rejects in the song too, so.
and which we ended up changing to Minor Threat. So it's Minor Threat's the best band of the way. So anyway, they basically told him, look, you don't have to pay this exorbitant amount. You can pay this much, but we want to pay with this band. And they were like, oh, no, you don't. You don't understand what's going on. Because, we had so many people on the stage with us all the time singing, and all this crazy dancing's going on that nobody, back then my dad came and saw a show at the Ritz. And when it was over, I said, well, what'd you think? And he's going, well, it was really loud and stuff, but how come you didn't stop that fight? I was like, what? And he's going, the fight. Like, every time y'all start playing, everybody start fighting. And I was like, no, that's not what's going on. So anyway, they asked us back to do this show kind of thing, right? So we got to go back on our terms kind of type thing. And so kids could come and all that kind of type stuff. And and when it was over, Big Tony was just like, shit, all those people get shit, kind of thing. I was just like, well, if you like this stuff, you really, when you get back home, get a hold of Ian and them at Discord, because they talk about you guys all the time in fanzines. They really love your stuff. But it was just two completely separate scenes going on there. And and I remember, because I told, God, I can't think of his name. You're gonna have a hard time editing all this kind of show. Hopefully you edit this stuff. But
No.
Foo Fighters guy, he came and
Dave Grohl?
Royal came and filmed me for the HBO thing he was doing when he did Austin. I had a big Dan Higgs beard at the time, and and I got to tell him this because it was pretty great, because he, like, they're all kind of, there was a roadie crew with Trouble Funk, and they weren't skinheads, but they were all bald headed and, like, just like this whole other scene going on. And when we were talking and I was saying something about DC, one of them kind of looks at me and goes, well, I like Scream. And I said, cool. Scream's a freaking great band. That's cool, kind of thing. So I told Dave that, which was pretty great.
Nice.
But anyway, so they went back, got a hold of Discord. Ian got a hold of us and just said, oh my God, you guys, you need to come and play this, because this wouldn't have happened, kind of, if this wasn't, if this hadn't, the seed hadn't been planted or whatever. So, and so we booked a tour all around that show. And we went through the Midwest, and I think we went up to I think that's when we went to Winnipeg, and played with Stretch Marks, who were a really great band, and just kind of made the circuit, went to Boston, all that kind of type thing. And so the trouble was that when you go on a tour, it's like being with your family in that station wagon on vacation. And here are the kids in the back seat, and the one kid's going, don't you cross this line right here. And the other one's doing this with their little finger, kind of thing, just like, so we needed to take a break, and we knew we were going to take a break. But we weren't breaking up. It was just like, let's stop for about a month or so, and then we'll start back up, kind of playing and everything. And then we had a show that we still needed to play. And there was a guy there that was like he was literally passing out, because this is kind of around the time when the skinhead thing started getting pretty bad, and he was passing out Nazi literature to all these little boys. So it was
Ugh.
really obvious what was going on. He's just looking for, for sex, or I don't know what kind of thing. But and he was an older guy and kind of thing, and it had nothing to do with KKK or actually kind of. And him and Biscuit had already had a run in, like, because I can't remember where they saw each other or whatever. But here he was at this show, and Biscuit saw him and pointed him out and basically said a bunch of stuff and then said, "Get him." And then when he said "get him," there was a kid behind him that I'm not going to name that was doing this behind him, and that kid was super responsible for like tearing up bathrooms now and like just making stuff, going behind people and hitting them over the head with a bottle and just stupid shit, just like kind of. And I was like, "Oh, and there's so and so, get him too." And we went in to know, and it just like, and luckily nobody was hurt, because it was like throwing meat out to a bunch of dogs, and the dogs don't get to the meat, kind of type thing. But when it was all said and done and over, Biscuit denied that he ever said that. So it looked like I started it, which no, I said, when I said after you said "get him," kind of, it just turned into this thing that was just like, okay, we really, really need to take a break. And we
Yeah.
still weren't going to break up. But also the idea was that when we get back home, Chris was really into Metallica, because the Metallica cassettes were coming out, the one with the hatchet and the blood. I can't remember what that's called.
Kill 'em
And
all, maybe.
Mike, huh?
Kill 'em all, or
Kill them all. And so
yeah.
Mike Carroll, who had been our roadie the whole time, was super, super shy, but he really, really wanted to be in a band. And he was way, way ahead of his time with all this stuff, because he was already listening to like British psych and just all this crazy psych, I don't know what, just some garage sounding stuff and just all of this. And so Chris was going to come home and start a band like Metallica, just for a break for a minute. And so I said to Mike, I said, "You know what, let's go ahead and do what you want to do. We'll play at Continental Club once." It was the same sort of thing. We'll play at Rolls, and now we'll play at Continental Club once, and you tell me, show me songs that you want to, do, and I'll write some stuff kind of close to that or similar or whatever kind of thing. And that's how Poison 13 started. And Mike was living with Chris, and but we didn't have a bass player, and all of a sudden we had a show. And so Mike was like, "Well, we should just get Chris in here." And I was kind of like, "This will be weird, because people are going to think, fuck it. Yeah, we're only playing one time. Let's head go. Chris can come on." And so then all of a sudden you had camps, because a lot of people thought that we started Poison 13 to kick Biscuit out. A lot of people thought that, I don't know what was going on. And Biscuit thought that too, kind of thing. And so we've all got friends that they have a truth that's not a truth at all, but the longer time goes by, it becomes a
Yeah.
truth. It's like they just will not believe in anything else. And that's what happened with Biscuit. And Biscuit just got stewed and stewed on it. When he passed, we'd already lost him years ago. Like it was, I was in where was I? I was in Glasgow, and I was recording a band, and Beth was with me, and the place we were staying at had just like a little bitty old Apple computer kind of thing. And I remember like finally getting on the computer after a day or two, and it was one of those ones that was pretty slow, and all of a sudden stuff started coming up for email, and it was, the first one was Mike Watt, and it just said, "Oh, sorry, Tim, really sorry." And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 I start seeing all this stuff. And I thought, literally my first thought was, he did it. He finally did. Because he always talked about killing himself, because of all this stuff. And I thought, well, he's finally done it, kind of thing. And then I had to explain, and it was sad, but I also had, like, again, we had already lost him. And I had to explain to the people I was staying with that idea, that we had already, he'd been gone for a long time now with us. Like he wasn't, he would basically run out of places if he saw me and Beth, and just for completely, stories. Does that make sense? Like it wasn't, none of the truths that he thought were true. It wasn't part, and he was already really upset with Chris, because Chris was screening t-shirts, uh, and not paying us the money for the shirts he was making. But I was fine with that. Chris is doing it, it's his thing. He's doing it. I don't care if I get money for this, that you're, so it just kind of turned bad. And so then Poison 13 got going pretty quick, and we did 2 records.
Yep. Back to back years, 84 and 85. Good records too.
And nobody here really liked us, because you either had the camp that thought we had kicked Biscuit out, and then you had the camp that just didn't like us because we were way too blues for the punk rock crowd, and we were way too punk rock whatever for the blues crowds, and we didn't fit in. So we had 20, 25 people would come and see us. It was best favorite band at the time that I was ever in. And we had no idea that it was such a huge thing in Seattle. We had no fucking clue about any of that. And that went all the way until Chris, not to get into a bunch of stuff with it, but Chris started taking a lot of speed and a lot of stuff like that, and I'm sure that affected him or whatever. And we don't really talk now, and so basically, strike 1, strike 2, here came strike 3, and with me and him, and it was just like I couldn't go, well, okay, and let it go, because if I let it go, it's just going to keep. So I tried to get Mike to, let's do something else. We can call it something else. And Mike was, like I said, he doesn't like confrontation. He's pretty shy and all this kind of stuff. And so he didn't want to do that. And I quit. And when I quit, the drummer quit. And Chris at the time was really, really now wanting us to sound. There was a band called the Strapados that were from here that were really great. And they were kind of like what Junkyard and what a lot of LA was starting to kind of be like. And they moved to LA. So Chris was really trying to get us to be more like that and Junkyard. But Mike didn't really want to do that. So I was, and plus me, it's like, yeah, I can play AC/DC, but it ain't going to sound like AC/DC coming from me over there, with the feedback and all this other crazy. And so he tried to get them to move. He moved to LA, and then basically kicked all the Strapado guys out except for the singer, and started up Junkyard with Brian Baker and him. And literally the day that I had said, okay, that's it, I'm out of here, that night I'd gone to a show, and there's a Billy, it's Billy Pringle, but people here would call him Billy Problem, because he was in one of the very early punk bands here called Boy Problems. And he looked exactly like, Generation X, the singer. Like he had that kind of
Billy Idol.
He danced, and really great dancer and all that. And he came up to me that night, and because it was like junior high school back then, everybody knew what was going on with everything kind of. And he came up to me at a show and was just like, man, I want to start this funk band, and you got to come and play guitar. And I was just like, well, and I really still wanted to do something with Mike. I wanted to do what we were doing because I liked it. I was having fun, and the reason we were doing so much blues stuff is because of me, and I could play slide and all that because of days in high school when I was playing all the crazy finger picking stuff and all that. And but I told him then, I said, well, if you want to play funk, I don't want to play funky rock, I don't want to play punk funk. If you want to play straight up funk, yeah, I'll do that. And he said, rap too? And I said, sure, kind of thing. And then literally 2 days later, Bad Mother Goose is practicing. So there wasn't really ever a stop between any of these bands for me. you know,
You're
kind of.
fantastic at keeping the story going. I was going to mention, Bad Mother Goose, Brothers Grimm, Monkeywrench. The band that I wanted to get a little more in with you is the Lord High Fixers.
That's my favorite band. That's
Well, I heard that I think it was the Gories. You guys did a split thing with the Gories from Detroit.
maybe I can't even remember if we did
Think,
or not.
I wrote down Things She Says. I think was the name of the single.
Yeah, we did that. I don't remember doing a split with Lord. Maybe I don't know. I have no idea. I don't remember. We put so many records out. I can't even
Yeah,
remember
there were
what.
like
Like
four
what
full length records and a
yeah,
bunch of
there were
singles.
there was like and you know before that was Jack of Fire that had just as much singles and stuff before. Uh, but Lord High Fixers, basically what happened was at the end of the 90s, or no, at the end of like 89 into 90, uh, Mudhoney came to play here. And Bad Mother Goose, we had Jack Nicholson's lawyer. There was all these bidding wars going on with us because the crowds were getting bigger and bigger, but they didn't know what to do with us because of the way we looked. Like we didn't fit the music and the the band was Denya was one of the singers, so we had black and white, men, women, and we're singing stuff like, you got a problem with this? Well, what's your problem? Are you racist? Like, what's going on? Thing like kind of, and we kind of, Fugazi started around the same time we did, and Ian and I have been friends for a long, long, long time, and so we would play with them a lot, and we were kind of, not that we were like them at all, but it was the same sort of social issues and stuff, and I think a lot of people thought we were going to be Sly and the Family Stone for the '90s. That's what the labels I think thought,
Yeah.
but they couldn't figure out what to do with us, and because of that band is why from then on, except for Monkeywrench, you never saw any photos of bands I was in, because I didn't want people doing that shit again of like looking and trying to like. So
It's
I'd much
interesting.
rather have a burning Vespa with a bunch of jazz records and what around, to where you're wondering like, what the fuck is this? Which is like, yep, cool. This is not, once again, outlier. I'm not gonna subscribe to these rules that people are saying you got to do this or do that. And so basically, Mike Mudhoney played. I went to the show because we weren't touring at that point when they played. Uh, they were super excited I was there. I couldn't understand why. And they came up to me and started talking, and Mark, and they basically, the more we talked, there were three incarnations of Poison 13. So there was the one that I was in with the two records. Then I got out. Chris played with them for a little bit and then moved to LA. And then they asked me back in. And when they asked me back in, Bad Mother Goose was going full tilt. And it was like, you fucked up. You should have, like, because now this is,
You've moved on.
so, well, yeah, I want to do it because it's Mike and he's asking. But we're going to have to go around the schedule of this other thing going on. So we, and this podcast is going to be long because I have piles and piles of stories. So and everything
It's
does
all right, man. It's all right.
connected, because it is. It's all. And so anyway, they asked me back in. I wrote a bunch of stuff. At that point, now I'm kind of listening to Blue Cheer and things like that. So I was kind of playing that more kind of stuff, and we only had one tape of that band, and it was a live recording off of the board from Liberty Lunch or something. And so you couldn't really understand Mike at all. And Mike wrote really fucking great words all the time. And so basically what happened was Mark and them found out that, hey, there's a whole nother set of songs that have never been recorded. And so they took the ball and ran. And so Sub Pop flew me up there, and the band was Tom Price had to play guitar because the U-Men were the only band that ever saw Poison 13 because their bus broke down at Chris's house, and they were here that whole summer that record came out, and like that first one and stuff. And so he had to play the other guitar. Mark was going to sing. Steve was pissed because he wanted to be part of it, so he decided he's playing bass. And then Martin had just moved there from Australia. And so he was going to play drums. Mark wanted him to play drums and stuff. And I was kind of, because it's Mike's band. It's like, I don't really want to, but Sub Pop kind of told me, well, we're going to definitely put on the record about him and kind of what, that kind of stuff. So I finally said, okay. And so the songs that I had written words to, those are the words, but a lot of them, Mark had to just come up with stuff because we didn't know what Mike was singing. Right. So that was probably 90, 91, 90s, where around there. And I gotten out of Bad Mother Goose, went right to Seattle to do this, came home. I wasn't going to be in anything else. I was pretty much, okay, that's it. I've done way more than I ever expected I was going to be doing. And, it's just time to move on. I don't know what, but like, let Beth get to do a bunch of stuff instead of following me around. And like, so basically that, I think it was, well, I guess Bad Mother was still going when we actually heard that. At that point in time, Mike was missing, and he could have easily been dead because we had no idea, because he didn't ever shoot up, but he was definitely doing speed and things like that. And he was, pretty bad alcoholic. And so we had no idea if he was still alive, and nobody really wanted to call his parents because we didn't want to hear that he wasn't there. We
Yeah.
wanted, like, and Mike had lived here near the last for, I don't know, not a year, but a pretty good while at the house here. And so the worst thing that happened was get a phone call. I wasn't home. Beth answered, and it was Mike's mom. And she was asking, do you know where Mike is? And Beth was like, no, we were hoping he was with you. And she said, well, he always said, if we can't find him, call you guys, you'd know. And it was just like, just like felt horrible, kind of. And so then there was a pretty good period where somebody called his parents' house. This is during Bad Mother, and realized, no, he's alive. He's there. Now he's there. He'd gone back home. So it's just like, all right, kind of thing. So then this Monkeywrench happens. Monkeywrench, once again, here we go again. One time. It was going to be a one-time thing. We played in Seattle. That was it. The whole freaking, all the famous people were all there to see this. And like, and so, and the other thing that was funny about that was this whole time they keep telling me about Poison 13 and the influence. And I'm just like, I just can't even believe. I mean, you have to be fairly vain to think that you did anything, kind of like, and they really wanted to play One Step Closer for the encore. And I was like, this just kind of, okay, if we get more than one encore, sure, kind of type thing. And of course, we got more than one encore, and we went out to go play it, and we started playing. When Mark started singing, the whole fucking club is singing this song. And I still get choked up thinking about it, because I literally stopped playing. I was so completely over, like, holy shit, like, kind of thing. And here, I gotta give something to Beth. And I just remember Mark looking at, because I quit playing. I was just standing there, and I remember Mark looking at me, grinning, kind of thing. And so anyway, I'm telling you that story because not too much soon after that, I had quit. All through this stuff, I'd worked at the libraries. I'd always worked at the libraries, and doing like AV and things like that, audio visual, and kind of. And when Bad Mother started touring so much, I quit the libraries. So anything to get back into that system. And so that summer, I started working at a stained glass place, and I started working at the mail room at UT, University of Texas, to get back into the system and stuff. And at some point during that summer, I'm at the stained glass place, and Beth calls me up crying, and she's like, Mike called. And I just get totally choked up again thinking about it. And it ends up that he was going to come to visit. And so I really, really wanted to say to him about what had happened in Seattle, like that, as bad as it freaking was, you made a fucking dent, you kind of, and so but I knew, like, I never was I never had any problems. I definitely got drunk back during Poison 13 and stuff, but I just didn't. I just stopped. I didn't. I wasn't one of those people that had to drink all the time, and I only drank at shows and like just and but I knew that you weren't really supposed to talk about that kind of stuff with people in AA, or you're not supposed to, like I don't know. I just thought a whole different kind of way about it. So I was kind of really cautious, and I was just so happy and excited that, here's somebody coming back. And that this is for everybody, here's somebody coming back that you thought may have been dead, and you get a second chance. And oh my God, like this could be the last time me and you are sitting here talking. So you better freaking hug and celebrate what's going on. And because you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't have a fucking clue. And so we start talking, and I say to him, I tell him about the Poison 13 or the Monkeywrench show. And he knew about Monkeywrench. He'd been kind of keeping up, and he knew all about what was going on, because he even back when he was already getting The Face and all those kind of magazines from England back before any of us even knew what that was. He was already knew what was going on and stuff. And so we're kind of talking about it, and I said, yeah, people want to reissue those records, but it was always your band. So I keep telling people, no, I don't want to kind of. So well, that would be cool, if Sub Pop wants to read it, that's cool, and maybe we can play. And I kind of like look, because he literally had to be unbelievably drunk to get up on that stage, and now he's completely sober and clean, and and obviously he wanted to prove to himself he could do this kind of thing, and he was a whole bunch of people. So he was an amazing singer, and like a lot of people like Mark or all those people, that was one of their favorite singers was Mike, because it was literally like Jekyll and Hyde when you would see the two different people. And so I was kind of shocked. Um, and then he starts talking about like, yeah, I was thinking maybe I was thinking about starting this a new thing, and I want to call it Lord High Fixers. And do you want to help? And I was like, yeah, kind of. So that's why that band is so special to me. And that,
Wow.
like, I know that a lot of these other bands are a big deal to people, and I'm honored, and I'm just amazed and all that kind of stuff. But this is the band for me that literally changed my whole outlook on how I looked at things, and how my life is now. Just all of this stuff is because he came back, and you realized. And so that's why shows were such a crazy thing for that band, because we were all older. Um, we didn't really care. Like at one point, John Spencer wanted us to tour with him, and because everybody, I mean, the shows were really fucking nuts and wild, because things would get thrown. There was just the whole idea was it's a celebration. I could care less if you think that I know how to play or not. This is because I'm up here with my friends. This is the last time I might be able to be up here with them. Let's celebrate kind of type thing. And oh my God, you're out now. Oh, I haven't seen you in forever. Here, throw the guitar to him, kind of thing. I mean, it was just this crazy. And we would either make it through the set, or we didn't make it through the set. And that was, we didn't really do encores. We didn't do any, because, the idea was that, when a basketball team plays and they win the game, they don't go back out and shoot baskets again. It's like it's over, kind of thing. So it was just a whole completely turnaround from band, kind of thing. And once you've stepped over that line, you can't go back. There's no possible way that you can just be in band anymore, because your attitude is such a different thing now. And what happened was, when Monkeywrench got back together in 2000, I just remember Mark and them going, or definitely Tom told me, don't come over here and hug me. And I just started laughing. I was just going, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. and
Wow.
and I'd really gotten into free jazz by that period. And so, that sound, or just banging or something, is just as valid as any guitar solo. Just everything. It was just a complete change. I don't even know how to explain, or not change, but more of a things opened up a whole lot better. Does that make sense? You know,
Yeah, I knew you were going to be enthusiastic about Lord High Fixers for some reason because they were such a cool band. To me, they were like a great garage rock band, you know. But
at the
um,
same time, it's really funny you say that because like I had a friend, because you know we did the thing with Ken Vandermark where it's just total free jazz piece. It sounds like Pharoah Sanders or something. And I remember a friend that was really into that heard that, was going, "Oh my God, this is Lord High Fixers." And I was like, "Yeah, we kind of played all kinds of." I thought y'all were just garage. And I said, "No, we're not." The outlier, you know, it's like we're not going to stick to. And Total Sound was basically the when Andy and them wanted to kind of get out. We didn't get out because anybody was mad at each other or anything, but they were in Houston. Sugar Shack was going, all this kind of. The Total Sound was basically the next step for that, where now we have the Hammond and we're playing more soul stuff and just just the whole yeah.
before we get current, I just have to ask you, do people ever come up to you and ask you about your record label? I know it's not your label, but
That started happening right at okay. The story that I know of is that basically the same time I went up to Seattle to go do Monkeywrench was right when Nirvana had just broken. So every major label is going after all the little farm league labels and trying to find Nirvana again. And there was a label called TK Records in Portland. Was Katie and Thor, and all of a sudden now it's Tim/Kerr Records. So a lot of people, because of the timing and me going up there, thought that I'd moved to Seattle and that was, and I didn't really. And the first time I ever saw anything about it was Cynthia Connolly, like sent me a big ad and saying, "I didn't know you had a record label," but was kidding because she knew that I wasn't. And and so then I started seeing reviews because, by now I'm recording all these bands for Estrus and like a bunch of different labels and stuff. And so I'm getting zines and seeing reviews of either bands I was in or am in. And then the reviews of, like the Mini Suzuki or whoever, bands that I'd recorded, makers, kind of. And, and it was really funny because when I would see like right next to that would be some record from TK or from Tim Kerr Records, and probably like 2 out of 5 would say something like, "Well, isn't this that guy in Texas? Wasn't this so and so kind of?" And so you're either one of those kind of labels that you look at that and you go, "Oh shit, we need to get a hold of this guy," or you go, "Cool," kind of thing, and don't say anything, which is what they did, kind of thing, right? I didn't really care. I didn't think about it. I didn't think it was an ad. Once again, you have to be fucking vain to think that something's, so I didn't really. But what happened was the first Garage Shock, I had people from Japan, I had people from Sweden, I had people coming up to me asking, like, "Well, man, I wrote you, but you didn't write back." And I write back. Like if somebody takes their time to write, and it kind of made me feel really bad. And so I called them up. And I said, "Well, this is going to be kind of weird, but I'm Tim Kerr," kind of thing. And they acted like they didn't know. And why should they? They acted like they didn't know who the hell I was or whatever. And it was just weird. It was a weird conversation. And so then I decided, a friend of mine, we now have a lawyer, or I have a lawyer kind of thing, but which is, it's like third generation straight edge kid that got entertainment lawyer, which is like the best combination ever. And but at the time, a friend acted like one and wrote a letter to him, said, "Well, you want me to do something, like let's try to." And I got a hold of Corey at Touch and Go. I got a hold of Bruce and Jonathan at Sub Pop, a bunch of different people to kind of be there to say, if this turns into something bad, can you like at least acknowledge that, no, I was kind of doing this before you were doing this, kind of deal. And then what would happen would be Thor was supposedly a hothead. I never met any of these people, and Thor was like a super hothead, and he would sometimes tell people that, like, "Well, we don't know who this guy is, we don't know anything about him," or any kind of thing. And then sometimes he'd be like, "Well, he should be happy because and just back and forth." And there was supposedly there was a Tim Kerr, which sure, I'm sure there's a Tim Kerr hockey player, kind of thing that's really famous. And he was basically saying that was the silent partner. But that's weird to me because if you're the silent partner, why is your name the name of the label if you're supposed to be the sign? I don't. It was a
A
whole weird.
lot of people thought it was your label. I mean, it
So,
was
so then what happened was finally it got down to the point of where we were saying to him like, look, we don't want to shut you down. We don't want any money. We don't want any kind. If you could just change the name, and even if it just says Tim Kerr, not from Texas, that's fine. Just something to kind of make people at least wonder. Is this or is this not? Well, we can't do that because we have an artist that's from Texas, and they would be offended. And I'm like
wow.
if Dave Kreider said Estrus not from Texas, that doesn't offend me at all because he's not from Texas. Like what the fuck? Like this is so whatever. Dropped it. Uh, I think they went under, and Thor has passed now, which fine, whatever kind of thing. And then the best thing that ever happened was when Monkeywrench got back together. Somebody from the Rocket did some big story on me kind of deal. And they talked to different people, like they talked to Steve Turner and just different, there's like little columns on the side of these kind of things. And one of the things they did was they called up Tim Kerr Records and they got a hold of this guy that hadn't been schooled yet. And the guy was just like, oh yeah, we get mail for him all the time. I was wondering who this was and what, but kind of thing. It was just like, you are cold busted. This is fucking great. And Thor was trying to sue the Rocket, for all this kind of shit, but it's just like, sorry, it's there it goes, kind of thing.
Wow.
So.
Before we talk about Up Around the Sun for a minute, I just wanted to mention you had a show at the Rosa Parks Museum in Montgomery.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
There was I had a show at trying to remember where this was, that somebody who saw this or something. Um, I had a show at Third Man. I was the first art show at Third Man Records in Nashville. Like they had
Nice.
to do this big show in the Blue Room and stuff, which was great. And so one of the paintings went to a really good friend of mine, Chet, that was in Quadrajets and in Lee County Killers and a bunch of different. He's in a bunch of really great. He's in a band now that's really great, and he works now at Third Man Records. And so Dan Peters was his friend, and Dan Peters was one of the people, was the main person at the Rosa Parks Museum in Montgomery. And basically, I think I must have posted something where I did a painting one time that was just like, not taking anything away from Rosa Parks because that's amazing, but there was a bunch of people before Rosa Parks that did this, that did the exact same thing in different, like New Orleans, different cities and stuff. And then there was, God, I'm gonna have Alzheimer's so freaking bad when I get old. I swear to God. But
I
anyway,
think you have a great memory, man. You're a great storyteller.
but anyway,
You remember everything.
I had a bunch of people that had not gone before her, and I posted that painting, right? And I saw that the Rosa Parks Museum had tagged it or had like taken it, and I was floored because it was just like, oh my God. I mean, that's like, to me, that's like the Museum of Modern Art, like grabbing something of mine, kind of deal for what I do and what I'm doing and stuff. And I've always kind of done. And so I wrote him a thank you. I just said, man, I am unbelievably honored. Thank you. And they wrote back and said, yeah, your stuff's really great. Do you want to do a show here? And I was just like, oh my God, kind of type thing. And so that's how that all happened. And the place was pretty freaking big. And there's another story that kind of ties into that. That's pretty great. That like, it's going to sound like I'm going way off base, but I'm not, because it's I skated, so I didn't really know anything about BMX. And so here's Ian turns 50. They had a big surprise party for him. They really wanted me and Beth to be up there for it and stuff. When the party's over, there's about 5 or 6 of us, me and Alec and Ian, and them just kind of standing around cleaning and talking. And Matt Hoffman is sitting there kind of listening to us, right? Well, I don't know who, because I didn't ride BMX. I don't know who. And at some point, Ian turns and points and says, oh, have you met? And all of a sudden, Matt's up and in my face and just going about these bands and just like, and I'm super honored, but I don't, like, and we go home and watch that Netflix thing and just like, holy shit, oh my God, kind of thing. And so we're now friends. And he was painting. He was like painting people's pets and stuff. When a lot of times, most of the time, when I have a show that's just mine, I have a big friends wall, because the thing with a lot of art is they all keep their cards so freaking close to them that there's not a community like the old school, when everybody was sleeping in everybody's house, or even the skate stuff. There just isn't. There's a community, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? Because people don't share. They're not really sharing.
Yeah.
And so I always have a big friends wall. Anybody can put stuff up or whatever. So when the Rosa Parks thing happened, I had a big, huge friends wall for it, right? So I got like Panhandle Slim, and I got a bunch of different friends of mine that all, and I asked Matt, I said, hey, do you want to put something in it? Tim, that's a museum. I was like, yeah, but you paint, put something up on the wall. Tim, I was just like, and so he got a bus sign, like kind of a small bus sign, and he painted Rosa Parks on it with the condor kind of flying over the top kind of thing. So here it is at the Rosa Parks Museum. Then it moved to this other gallery, like a big museum that was I can't think of the name of the place where it was. But anyway, and the night of the opening, here come these 4 kids in. And the 4 kids, they're not interested in art at all. They could care less. They're there because there's nothing to do in this freaking town. And they heard some old guy that skates painted this stuff or whatever kind of thing. So they come in, they're not even paying attention. And they're standing right in front of the friends wall, or one of the main ones of it. And they're kind of right in front of Matt's piece, right? But they're not looking. They're just talking like me and you are, and like all this stuff's behind me kind of thing. And so I took a chance, and I walked up, because one of the kids had pretty long hair, and usually the Hesher kids were the ones that were the BMX kids and stuff. And so I walked up and I just said, hey, do you ride bikes? It's like, yeah, kind of thing. I said, well, do you know who Matt Hoffman is? It's like, yeah, like, who the fuck is this old guy, and what the fuck, like, kind of. I said, well, he did that piece right there, and they all turn. And you can visually see light bulbs going off, and you can hear like, art's cool, art's cool. And they literally they spent the rest of the time, and the place was bigger than the Rosa Parks Museum was, and we went around, read, because I always write stuff and all that. It was amazing. So I got to tell Matt, like face to face, not how we are now. I got to, one day we were together, and I told him, we hugged him, and we're both lumps in our throats. And I'm like, see, you put something, even with podcasts, not mine, but just in general, you don't fucking know. Once something goes out, you have no idea what could happen with it, or what's going to happen with it, or how it might influence somebody, or some kid may start up podcasts because they think they can do better than you can, or like whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, but it's so, I tell people all the time, if you're going to do something, you better, to each his own, whatever. But for me, I want to be able to say 30 years from now that, like, yeah, I did that, instead of like going, yeah, we did that, but, kind of thing. So it's that sort of thing. So it was really cool to, like, for Matt to kind of see, like,
Yeah. That's
he
fantastic, man.
was one kid, which was great. So,
Okay, so here we go. Up around the sun. We made it. Sorry I took you through this. Well, you're a great storyteller,
Still a
so
whole lot of other bands too, because you've got King Sound Quartet, you've got Now Time Delegation, which was the only band that my brothers actually wanted a record of. The Total Soul thing we did with Lisa, that's really great. And I mean, there's been a bunch. So yeah,
there
you know,
could have been a Tim Kerr records
well,
with all the
well, the funny thing that especially now with this band, I've been kind of saying to people that, like, I really do not like vacuum cleaner salesmen at all. I'm just not really into the whole. And when we are on guest lists, Beth and I stand in line. I don't really like the whole idea of I'm somebody, just the. This could be the biggest podcast in the whole fucking world, and
it could be.
and it could. Me and you are going to be sitting at some coffee shop, whatever, and the table next to us are going to be going, "Who? What do you do? What?" There's no point, and it's just ridiculous kind of type thing. So I'm always telling people that, like, I don't like vacuum cleaner salesman, but yeah, I've kind of done a whole lot of stuff, and it's like, and I'm not dead yet. So, and I also hope I haven't seen the best thing yet. It's like nothing's my high school touchdown pass, kind of type thing. And I, it's not belittling any of that stuff. Once again, honored all of that when people are asking about it, but at the same time, it's like it's still going, and I hope I haven't seen the best thing yet. So yeah.
How did you get with American Laundromat?
Because Watt wanted to do a Big Boys song. He wanted to do a single that was a split single, and he wanted to do a Big Boys song, and so they did "We Got Soul." And so
Oh,
trying to tell Laundromat that, well, and he really wanted us to do something on the other side, right? And I said, well, first of all, we don't sing, and second of all, like Jerry really kind of has to have some sort of a melody because he's playing old Appalachian fiddle tunes is what he's doing, and then what I'm doing on top completely changes it. Kind of not necessarily on purpose, but that's just growing up listening to John Martin and all that stuff. That's how I hear this stuff. I don't, kind of. So we're not being disrespectful. It's just I just hear it a different way and like kind of. So anyway, I start thinking about it, and I'm just like, well, maybe we could do Joe McCarthy's Ghost. Oh shit, no, Jack of Fire already did that, and actually we did a really really great version of that Mike really loved, like Mike Watt and stuff. So maybe History Lesson. No, you can't do history. No, that's Minutemen. You can't fucking do that song. There's no way. Kind of thing. It's just not acceptable. To like be and then I realized that Watt wrote it because I always thought D. Boone wrote it. So now it made sense where he says I was John Doe, or something like that. So, um, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm still kind of like more leaning towards no, we can't do that one, can't. And then light bulb goes off, and I realize, you know what? I'm gonna write a bunch of people, and let's do something. Let's send it back, and kind of thank you, for what they'd written and stuff. And so I called up John, started writing people like Kate from the Pogues, like all these different people, and even people that nobody even know, that were never in bands, just friends and stuff. And I said, hey, sent out a bunch of emails, and I said, hey, do the song for me, and I'm gonna chop it up. I'm gonna take the different lyrics out of it, and we're gonna put it on top of what we're playing, kind of thing. So, um, and it was funny because when I sent it, it was one of those things where if I would have sent it to you, basically you get it one time, and if you're going, oh man, yeah, I want to do this, and I don't hear from you again, I'm not writing you again. It's like you either had to have been right there and done it, or sorry, kind of thing. And when the stuff came, it was really funny because you could tell some people were just basically kind of reading out the lyrics and then some people were obviously going with the record because there'd be the pause, where the kind of little guitar thing happens and then it'd start up again, kind of type thing. So then what I did was I picked things that made sense to me that it fit the person that was saying. So like our friend Julie Carroll, who had been married to Mike, and then Mike's, once again, he's here, but he passed. She's like fourth generation Californian. She did learn punk rock in Hollywood, so she's got that line. And Beth's got the line where punk rock changed our lives, kind of thing and stuff. And then John Doe saying I was John Doe, and so it just a whole bunch of people. Mark starts it by saying our band could be your life. Ian's on there, it's just it's all over the map, but it made sense of who I was, picking to do what to say. And so, and Terry from this is Bob Dylan to me, who was in Pipe Bomb, Bike's Pipe Bomb, which is a fucking great record and really, really good band, and kind of like Woody Guthrie on punk, kind of thing. And so anyway, that's what that was. And so sent it all out, did it. It kind of, anybody that was left that didn't get a line basically is in that break saying punk rock changed our lives, kind of thing, saying. So and then I got the guy at Joe, I got him to list everybody that was on this thing, and I made sure that they each got a single, for doing it and stuff.
Wow.
And it turned out, I mean, once again, embarrassed to say it and kind of hate these kind of people, but it turned out better than I thought it was going to turn out. And John Doe wrote me right back when I sent him the stuff. I was just going, I was tearing up. I was going, yeah. So,
Wow.
have you heard it?
No, I have not heard it.
Yeah, you should go on Bandcamp and listen, because I don't think you can get the single anymore. But yeah, it turned out, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it didn't really get written up as much because of what it was, because that song was such a thing to so many people from that period of time, kind of thing, and that line, this is Bob Dylan to me, kind of deal. So,
Tim, you've had quite a life.
well, it's once again, hope I haven't seen the best one yet. So it's been.
Thank you so much, man, for taking the time to talk to me. I really enjoyed your stories. They're just fantastic. And I know we probably missed things, but maybe we'll do another one sometime, man.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. So,
Thank you, Tim.
okay, thank you.